It was supposed to be the perfect place to start their new life. Emma and David had just purchased a beautiful Victorian house nestled in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of house you could imagine living in forever. But little did they know, the house had secrets, secrets that would soon turn their dream home into a waking nightmare. They had been looking for months, scrolling through endless listings of homes, trying to find something that matched their vision. When they first laid eyes on the house, they were in awe. The towering Victorian structure stood proudly at the end of a tree-lined street, its ornate windows and intricate woodwork giving it a timeless charm. The sprawling backyard, complete with a flower garden and an old stone fountain, only added to its allure. It was a place they could raise a family, a place full of potential. The purchase was quick. The previous owners were moving out of state, and after a few negotiations, Emma and David were the proud new owners of the house. They moved in at the end of the summer, excited to fill the rooms with furniture and memories. Emma, a lover of vintage and antique decor, felt that this house was her dream come true. David, on the other hand, was excited for the peace and solitude it would provide after years of apartment living. At first, everything seemed perfect. The air in the house was fresh, and the rooms were warm and welcoming. The first few weeks were filled with unpacking boxes, painting walls, and getting settled. But as the days passed, Emma started to notice something strange. It started slowly, a faint noise in the middle of the night. At first, they thought it was just the house settling. You know, the kind of creaks and groans every old house makes. But then the noises became more distinct. Whispers. Low, soft whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Emma had always been a light sleeper, so at first, she dismissed it as her imagination playing tricks on her. But the more she listened, the more she realized these whispers weren't just random sounds. They were calling her name. Emma. It was faint at first, barely audible, but it was there, lingering in the air. Sometimes it came from the walls, other times from the ceiling, and on a few occasions, she could have sworn it came from the floor beneath her feet. One night, as she sat reading in the living room, the whispers grew louder, as if someone was standing behind her, speaking directly into her ear. Her pulse quickened, and she turned, expecting to see David standing there. But he was on the other side of the house. Alone, she brushed it off, thinking it was just the wind or maybe the house's creaky old pipes. But that thought did little to calm her unease. Days passed, and the whispers continued. She tried to ignore them, telling herself they were just her imagination running wild. But the strange sounds seemed to grow louder and more frequent. Sometimes they would start right after dinner, and sometimes they would wake her in the middle of the night. Emma, Emma, the voice would call. David, who had been out late one night for work, was the next to experience the unsettling noises. He had been sitting at the kitchen table when he suddenly felt a cold breeze wash over him. At first, he thought it was the draft from the open window, but when he looked, the window was shut. A chill ran down his spine. And then he heard it too, the whisper of his name. David. The voice was soft, but unmistakable. He looked around the room, his eyes darting from corner to corner. There was no one there. He stood up quickly, the unease settling in his stomach. He called out to Emma, but she wasn't home. He decided to leave the room, but before he could step outside, the voice came again. Don't leave. David froze. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He bolted out of the house, breathing heavily. He wasn't sure what to think, but one thing was certain. There was something wrong with the house. That night, Emma and David stayed up late talking about what they had both experienced. Neither of them wanted to admit it, but they were both terrified. The house was old, yes, but neither of them had ever experienced anything like this before. The whispers were unlike anything they had heard in any other place. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Emma decided to research the house's history. She spent hours on the computer, searching through old records and newspapers. What she found made her blood run cold. The house had been built over 100 years ago, and many families had lived there. But one family stood out, the Moore family. The Moores had lived in the house in the early 1900s, but their time there had been short and shrouded in mystery. The entire family had vanished without a trace one night, leaving behind only a few belongings and strange rumors. The whispers, Emma realized, might not just be random. They might be the voices of the Moore family, trapped within the walls of the house. Trapped in some kind of never-ending cycle, Emma became obsessed with the idea, spending all her free time researching the house. She discovered that Eliza Moore, the mother of the family, had kept a journal that had been passed down through the generations. In her journal, Eliza wrote about hearing strange noises, whispers in the walls, and feelings of being watched. One entry stood out to Emma. "They are here. I hear them calling me. I cannot leave. The house will not let me. It wants me to stay, just like it wanted them. I see their faces when I close my eyes, always watching, always waiting. They are not gone. They are still here." The journal confirmed what Emma had feared. The house was alive. And it wasn't just the house. It was something darker, something older, that was controlling everything. The Moores hadn't left. They had been consumed by the house. Their spirits were trapped, unable to escape. One evening, as the whispers grew louder and more frequent, Emma and David decided to confront the house. They armed themselves with a flashlight and ventured down into the basement, the source of the strange noises. As they opened the basement door, the smell of dampness hit them. The air was thick and cold, like something was smothering the room. The flashlight beam flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. At the far end of the basement, they found an old chest. It was dusty, as if it hadn't been touched in years. But as soon as they opened it, they found a collection of strange objects, old photographs, trinkets, and what appeared to be a lock of hair. Emma's heart raced. These were personal items, things that shouldn't have been left behind. And then they found the journal. This time, it wasn't Eliza's. It was someone else's, a man named Edward Moore. The journal was written in frantic, desperate handwriting, as if the writer had been running out of time. In the journal, Edward detailed the family's experiences with the house, how they had tried to leave, but the house wouldn't let them, how the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and how on the night they disappeared, they had been consumed by the house itself. Edward's final entry was chilling. "We cannot escape. We are bound to this house, to its dark heart. It watches us. It feeds on us. We are its prisoners." Suddenly, the temperature in the basement dropped. Emma and David turned, their hearts pounding in their chests. The figure of a man appeared at the bottom of the stairs, tall, gaunt, with hollow eyes. It was the ghost of Edward Moore. "Get out," the figure whispered, its voice like gravel scraping against stone. "You are not welcome here." In a panic, they ran back upstairs, but the house had other plans. The walls seemed to close in on them, the whispers growing louder, more frantic. Emma and David couldn't breathe. The house was alive, and it wasn't going to let them leave. In the chaos of their escape, David was separated from Emma. He ran through the house, calling her name, but the house twisted and turned, the hallways stretching longer with each step. He was lost in the maze of rooms, unable to find the door. Emma screamed for him, but the only response was the whispers. The house was swallowing them whole. In the morning, when the police arrived to investigate, they found the house abandoned. All of Emma and David's belongings were gone, and there were no signs of struggle. The only clue was the journal, left on the kitchen counter, with one final message written in a shaky hand. "You were never meant to leave." Emma and David were never seen again. The house, however, still stands, waiting, and it still whispers. As the house swallowed Emma and David, the whispers grew louder, more desperate. They had become part of the house, trapped like the Moors before them. The authorities found the house empty the next morning. But the chilling message left in the journal echoed through the silence. You were never meant to leave. The house stands still, its dark heart beating in the shadows. It waits, watching for the next victims. Those who step inside may never leave, their souls bound to the whispers, forever lost in the house that never lets go.